Today we're talking about tires. Oh yeah. And what's up everyone, Hugo Mendez here and welcome to the Chaskis channel, the best place to learn how to get ready for the Dirty Kanza 200, especially if you're a rookie gravel cyclist like me who's getting ready to complete the Dirty Kanza for the very first time. In this week's video, I talk about how to pick the right tire for the Dirty Kanza. And since I'm not an expert at all about this topic, I invited my good friend Brian to give me some good advice. Brian is not only an amazing bike mechanic and also a shop owner, but he's also a Dirty Kanza veteran. So he's gonna answer questions that I had about what types of tires, what types of wheels, what kind of pressure, maintenance, tools. And stick around to the end to learn a really cool trick you can use the next time that you get a flat while you're in the middle of that long ride, the middle of nowhere. But before we talk about tires and wheels and pressures, don't forget to like this video, click on that red subscribe button, and also don't forget to hit that little bell to be notified the next time that I release new videos. And if you're not following Chaskis on Instagram, just go there, look for @Chaskiup. I'm always posting content related with my journey to completing the DK200. So here are my main takeaways on this conversation on how to pick the right tires for the Dirty Kanza 200.
You're going to have an advantage if you go with a tubeless setup. My advice is to make sure your tire is tubeless ready, your rim is tubeless ready. What you'll need to do if it's not already set up tubeless, take everything apart, see if there's a waterproof tape, a tubeless tape, put down on the base of the rim as a rim tape. And if not, get rid of whatever's on there, clean the rim extremely well. We use acetone and clean off all the old adhesive, anything on there, we clean it really, really well. Then we use tubeless tapes, sometimes one, sometimes the other, depending on width. The width needs to be from edge to edge, and with gravel bikes, I think do a minimum. You don't need to do more than 2 layers, but I would not do 1 layer. It's just 2 layers provides a little more durability. You need to get yourself a tubeless valve, and you'll have to have sealant, and then the tubeless ready tire. With all those, you can make a tubeless system, and you can make it fairly easily nowadays. Most things are set up pretty well, pretty fast, pretty easy. The tubeless system, if you're going to run sealant anyway, one way or the other, a tubeless system is going to be lighter. You don't have an inner tube at that point. You've just got sealant inside the tire. But the whole point is there's a pretty good likelihood at some point in those 200 miles of, say, a race like Dirty Kanza, that something's going to try and puncture your tire. And the sealant, hopefully, if it's not too big of a hole, is going to seal it up. And best case scenario is you don't even know you punctured. You just keep going. It does its job. So it's a liquid in there that is just being sloshed around and kind of forms a layer as that tire rotates at a higher speed and covers the outer part of
the inside
tire.
of the tire.
650B
and
700C are the 2 de facto road and gravel standards. If you take just a rim, the 700 is slightly bigger diameter. 650B, even though it's a slightly smaller wheel diameter, usually the reason people use it is because they'll mate that rim with a wider, bigger tire. So let's just say you have a 650B rim, but you're using a 42 millimeter tire. Compare that to 700C by, 32, 35. The outer diameter might be very, very close to the same. A lot of times people will use 650B just because in a frame that will accept, say, 700 by 38s, all of a sudden they can get a slightly smaller diameter rim and use a bigger tire and still fit it in the same frame. So your outer diameter could be potentially, outer diameter of the tire that is, could potentially be the same.
So you can use a rim with a smaller diameter with a tire
that's much bigger.
much bigger, and
Yeah.
that you would potentially protect you more.
Yes, and that's usually when we see people using 650B is when they're using 40, 42, 45, and bigger millimeter wide tires. And most manufacturers, it seems, now will say you can use their frame with 700 by something or 650B by something, with 650B being bigger. If I'm doing a long race on dirt, I usually go with super minimal, if no tread, because I'm not mountain biking. Basically, I'm not carving into corners really hard. For me personally, on gravel, I don't feel like I need that tread. I just feel like when I get to a paved section, that just slows me down. For 99.999% of that race, I am going in a straight line. You know, it may be gravel, it may be loose, but I'm just going in a straight line. And I'm just allowing, even if it's super loose and rough, I'm just kind of, you know how you just hold the bars lightly and kind of let that front wheel not drift, but just do its own thing. Keep your balance and keep applying pressure to the pedals. The front end will take care of itself. When you get to gravel downhills, let it go.
Yeah.
You know, you can keep pushing those limits. I mean, you'll see, man, you can just bomb once you get the confidence and the right tires and pressure, just bomb downhills as long as it's in a straight line. I guess along those lines, it's not so much the tread pattern that's important to me, it's the casing. Having a beefed up casing is well worth the wait, because those rocks are going to try and cut your sidewall.
Right. Yeah.
And that's way more important than tread. When we talk about pressure, it's integral with your tire volume, meaning the wider the tire you go, the lower air pressure you're going to ride. The old philosophy of road riders was thin tires, super high pressure. Boy, they must be efficient. When in fact, yes, if you have a super smooth surface like a velodrome, if you're riding on a surface like that, the smoother the surface, in fact, the smaller the tire and the higher the pressure you can use, and it will help you. But the opposite is true for the rougher surface. The rougher the surface, the bigger the tire at the lower air pressure, until weight is a disadvantage. Kansas is full of these big white sharp rocks. It's a totally different type of gravel, and I would say anywhere from 38 to, whatever you're comfortable with. I think a lot of people will be using from 38 to 42 millimeter width tires. As you go up in size, you can go down in pressure, and it becomes a huge advantage. Think of it this way. You want the casing to flex and move out of the way of that rock. You don't want the tire pressure high enough that it lifts you and the bike. It takes a lot of energy to lift you and the bike. Imagine doing that a million times during that ride. That's energy that could be used to go forward. If your casing is supple and the pressure is low enough and it flexes out of the way and you and the bike go smoothly over the rock, you've spent a minuscule amount of energy to just flex the casing of that tire. You become more efficient. You spend less energy bouncing around. Let's put it that way. You incur less fatigue. You're no longer being jostled. Imagine a really long, hard ride where you're just being shaken and your teeth are being rattled. Well, A, it's super inefficient, and B, it's super fatiguing. The difference in traction is amazing. Instead of skittering around corners and bouncing and skittering, that tire is planted on the ground now, and you're in control because the handlebars aren't shaking and skittering, and you're not losing traction. You're maintaining traction because the tire casing is conforming over the rocks. It is a win-win situation to go bigger tires with lower air pressure. So let's just say 38 to 42, and you can certainly go outside that rim. You can go much bigger. Then let's talk about pressure, though. So on a 25 millimeter tire on gravel, you're probably going to have to run 100 to 100 plus just to not pinch flat. But when you go up to 40, 38, 42. Oh man. Yeah, I mean, you're running those things at like 30. People have to experiment. You can take a pressure down and it'll be almost the same efficiency in a straight line down to absurd pressures. What happens though, if you go too low and then you go into a corner, your sidewall is flexing and you get this really, it almost feels like you're rolling the tire on the rim.
Wow.
And it starts to feel super weird. The other problem with the rocks in Kansas is if you run things as low as you potentially could here, if you do that there, you stand a good chance of banging up your rims. Now, if you're running tubeless, you can't pinch flat a tube, but you could still hurt the sidewall of a rim and you could still tear the sidewall of a tire. You can use a few PSI or bar, however you measure your tire pressure, atmosphere. You can use a little bit less air pressure up front than in back. Most of your weight is over or closer to being over the back tire than the front tire. So you can use less up front. Always be experimenting with tire pressures on different surfaces and just keep learning and figure out what's best for you. Remember that your weight, whatever it is maybe totally different than someone obviously much heavier, much lighter than you. Lighter people get away with lower air pressures. Heavier people have to use higher air pressures to suspend their weight. You don't want to let your tires get super thin. So tires get, at least on the road more for sure, they'll get squared off on the top. Like every week or so I kind of look at my tires, see if there's any cuts, pick out rocks. Around here we have thorns. Hopefully you don't get those in your tires, but pick things out of the tires, look for cuts, make sure the sidewalls aren't cut into. If I'm riding tubed tires and I'm getting out and going a long ways from town, I usually would carry 2 tubes and a patch kit and a pump. And I'm kind of old school. I don't carry CO2s other than races. Do not forget to take a pump. If something goes wrong and you don't have a hand pump, wow.
Yeah. Now, if your tires are set tubeless,
absolutely try to take still a tube and a pump for that kind of emergency situation. So on a long race or a kind of an epic ride situation, yes, I would make sure I have a energy bar wrapper or a dollar bill or something to boot the tire. And on a race, I'll probably take a tire plug. They're great. If you get a big hole, you can stick a plug in there and that will fill up the hole and seal the leak. They work amazingly well. For Kanza, I think that'd be a great idea. They weigh nothing and they cost very little. You want something kind of rather new, I would say, but not brand new. You should have used it and trusted it for a week. Know that those tires set up and hold air perfectly. Zero problems, no wobble in the casing. They don't lose pressure. That's super important. You don't want to put brand new tires on the day before, only to find that you wake up that morning and they've lost all their air pressure. A lot of times I'll take my wheels out, just hold the tire up to my ear and just shake the tire, kind of hear the sloshing in there.
Yeah.
Just FYI, that's a great thing to be able to do. Just slosh that tire around and listen. And you've got liquid in there, or you don't hear that sloshing. You don't, so put some in. Think of every training ride you do from now till then as an experiment. Gain a knowledge of that. Like at 38, I love this setup. I love these pressures for this tire. If you go with a bigger tire, you're going to drop that pressure and start learning again. And this has happened to many people. You puncture, you're riding, all of a sudden like, oh my God, what's this white stuff spraying all over me? Stop immediately, find the leak where your sealant's blowing out of that hole and put it directly, point straight down and tilt that bike whichever way you have to, so that you can imagine all that liquid will then stop and go to the bottom of the tire. And you want as much liquid near that hole as possible. so that it gives it every chance, the best chance of sealing itself. You've got a puncture, and it's actively blowing sealant out that tire. Stop as fast as you can safely, and find out where that sealant's coming out, and put that at the very bottom so all the liquid goes down to that point. So you've got a bunch of sealant down there kind of trying to plug up that hole.
So if you found this content useful, don't forget to like this video, click on that red subscribe button, also hit that bell to be notified the next time that I release new videos. And also, if you're not following Chaskis on Instagram, just go there and look for @Chaskiup. As always, thank you for watching. See you next week. Time to Chaskiup.